We are from the mayor's office now in Gloucester with Gloucester Mayor Greg Verga. And Mr. Mayor, welcome back to MSO and a happy summer to you.
Happy summer to you, Mr. Moore.
All right, Mr. Verga. It wasn't that long ago when you were in this studio, but now you're in a different studio and things are going well, I presume. A lot to talk about now. First thing we want to talk about is the new school over in Ward 2, I believe it is, that has affected a playing field. There was a long-time softball field over there that's now being, it's not necessarily being moved, but there's a new field opening up. You want to mention that?
Sure. Well, quick bit on the school. So we were growing up, when I was growing up, going to the school, it was Ward 2 school, but now it's technically in Ward 1. But it serves most of the people from that area of Ward 2. And now with the combining of what was Veterans Memorial and East Gloucester Elementary to the new East Vets, it'll feed all of the kids from East Gloucester will feed into that school, as well as the ones who were attended the previous school. And update on that, it's on time, on budget. It should be going through the commissioning process over the next few weeks. You know, all the checklists and making sure it's ready to go, getting the occupancy permit. And we are planning on having the students there when the school opens at the end of August. We've already moved out of the St. Anne's, the rented space where the Veteran Memorial Temporary School was. And then we'll have a whole lot to talk about the East Gloucester school site as we move forward there, because as you recall, part of the deal was that building would be raised and it would become recreation. So we've already kicked that over to the Open Space Committee to look at the planning of what that space will become. So stay tuned for that. There's going to be a lot of public involvement in that. We're not going to do it in a vacuum. But back to the original question about the field. So Mados Field, as you recall, was the softball field. I used to be the bat boy when you were on the yellow sub softball team back in 1979.
Seemed like yesterday.
I happen to find the team picture in my father's attic, by the way. So
I've got one also.
Yeah.
With you.
Anyway, so the women's softball league spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of time raising money, as well as getting CPA money to put lights in over there. They maintained it. It was like their field, and they had a lot of ownership of it. And so I'm not going to relitigate what happened, how the deal became what it is, where the new school was located on that spot, displacing Mados Field. But the arrangement was, we're going to take this spot, we the city, I was not in office at the time, we're going to take this spot that the field currently sits on to utilize for the new school, and we will build a new field elsewhere, which in the decision ultimately was Green Street, down towards Gloucester Crossing. So I actually attended a pre-construction meeting just yesterday on that. And so it should be starting in the next couple of weeks, this month definitely. To cut to the chase, the contract says it must be seeded, grass seeded, SEEDED, by September 15th. And the hope is to have 2 growing seasons, this fall and in the spring, and have it ready at the end of spring for games. So just some of the details about it, the company that's going to be doing the landscaping and construction is Heimlich. They also did Newell Stadium back about 10 years or so ago. It's going to include a regulation softball field, dugouts for the teams, the lighting for both the field and the pedestrians. The lighting is recycled from the old Mados Field down on Webster Street. The scoreboard also being moved over from Webster Street. There's going to be a walking path around the entire park. They're also going to set up workout stations like pull-up bars and things like that. The basketball court is going to be redone, resurfaced, fencing around the whole area. Down towards Gloucester Crossing, where the field is going to be, there'll be a parking area created for about 30 plus cars. The parking area on the Green Street side is going to be resurfaced. So that's all in the first phase. The second phase is going to include a pad for a storage shed, and then the bathrooms that were a big topic of conversation a few months ago will be in that phase, and they'll be located toward the Green Street entrance. This phase will include running the sewer line from the street, Green Street, to the spot where the field is going to go. Where the bathrooms are going to go. So that's about it. It's okay. A long time coming. It kind of was languishing over the year or so before I got into office, when I came into office, I was like, hey, what's going on with this? And I was surprised to find out that there wasn't much. And unfortunately, the wheels of local government and the bidding process aren't fast. But here we are now. It's going to be in place for 2024.
Well, I just had a flashback to when Halyard was a school site, and there were lots of playing surfaces over there. But progress, I guess. Time marches on and moves on. Let's
Well,
now.
just to hang on to that topic for so as you recall, when I was on the city council, I suggested we keep half of the Fuller site for future use. I was voted down on that one. But when I was on the school committee and we discontinued to use the Fuller as a K-5 school, the Charlie Thomas Field, which was at Fuller, we made a conscious effort working with the Thomas family to relocate it. With discussions with them, they said that Charlie also worked at Beeman, so we rededicated the field at Beeman for him at that time.
Yeah.
So this is kind of where we are now with this field. We have lost playing fields over the last few years. I could say while I was on the city council, we didn't, and since I've been mayor, we haven't. And going forward as mayor, we won't.
Right. And I'm glad you brought Charlie Thomas's name up. Great teacher and a great advocate for children in the city.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on now. The topic that I have been involved with you since we've been doing this, you as mayor, has been the kiosk situation and parking. It's summertime now,
Yeah.
and it's pretty evident with the traffic in Gloucester. So what's the update on that situation?
So we are good to go. I believe I made a video of it, of like a how-to video that's on the Facebook page. There's also an outtake from the video I attempted to make several months ago, but then we realized they weren't working. So this has been another bit of a challenge. Again, when you recall, before I was mayor, they were installed and then they were covered with plastic for many, many months because the wrong kiosks were ordered. They didn't all take coins. I think none of them took coins, it was just credit cards in the app. So the correct ones came in, I think, just before the election, 2021. Turned out they still were missing a few steps. The payment system wasn't set up. The app wasn't quite working. We didn't have a maintenance plan in place. We really didn't have a back end, a dashboard, so to speak, to monitor these things. So that's what we've been working on diligently, pretty much every week for the last 16 months, however long it's been, 18 months I've been here, trying to get this in order. And a few weeks ago, we got to the point that we felt comfortable. The dashboard is correctly monitoring them, showing that everything is in working order. They're properly labeled with the zones. And we have begun to kick up the enforcement, which was kind of laid back over the last year and a half because it's not right to zing someone with a parking ticket when the kiosks are not in a dependable working order. So you'll notice around town a couple of the Nissan Leaf vehicles, the electric vehicles that were purchased through a grant several years ago, were transferred from community development to parking enforcement. So we've got 2 vehicles appropriately labeled parking enforcement. They have plate readers on the roof, 2 plate readers on either side. So they just drive down the street, boom, boom. It tells if someone's, because it's all linked wirelessly. You punch in your license plate number when you buy a spot at the kiosk, and then the system in the vehicle, the enforcement vehicle, knows if you're paid up or not. So it's a pretty efficient way of doing things, and just people download the app. It's a lot easier to do it that way. It's a lot easier to add to the meter if you need to, if you're off site. But we are pretty confident that we are in a good place now. And if any people do have problems with it, you can always go to the next meter or the app. And if you do find one that's not working, please let us know through the C-Click Fix system or give us a call here at the office.
I think anybody younger than me can figure out the app. I have to get my daughter. I've not been able to figure it out so far, but we'll get it done. Okay, let's go over to the Magnolia Pier.
So Magnolia Pier, another one that was sort of in a standstill when I took office. Quick refresher here. It had been completely destroyed a few years back. It was rebuilt completely. Well, a few years prior to that, volunteers rebuilt the surface, but then that was destroyed in a storm. The city did spend a lot of money rebuilding it completely, put a new pier, a new ramp, a new, well, recycled the float from another purpose. I don't recall where it was prior to that. Another storm came and wiped out the ramp and the float. So that's what was sort of languishing. And so again, I took office and said, hey, what's going on with the pier? And found out nothing. So we began that process, which included permitting through the state and permitting through the Army Corps of Engineers. I mentioned how slow municipal government can run. Now we're dealing with state and federal government. So we are now at the point that we have the permit from the state. The Army Corps of Engineers has signed off on it, and I'm pretty certain that the public comment period has passed, so the permit's good to go. We have a vendor who we sent the contract to, and we should have a start date pretty soon. I don't have it today, but it's basically a gallows system. So what we want to avoid is if there's an anticipated storm, we can get down there prior to what we've got planned. Someone have to get down, we'd have to hire someone to come with a crane and pull this heavy ramp out of the water. This new system will be basically, these 4 posts that will just lift it right up out of the water. So if we know there's going to be a storm, somebody goes down, presses the button, pulls the ramp out, and it's now safe from the storm, unless it's a really, really bad storm. So that should be a much more efficient way of handling things. So the ramp has been repaired because it wasn't completely destroyed, just a little mangled. We were able to buy parts to connect the ramp to the new gallows system. We were pre-procuring some of the parts, so when we got the contractor in place, we wouldn't have to be waiting to buy materials because they were back ordered. So that's going to be done, as well as paving of the landside access to the pier. So long time coming. The people of Magnolia have made it very clear to me in multiple ways that they were anxious. I'll just use that word, anxious, to get this project underway and finished. So I'm happy to say that it will be done by the end of the summer. Unfortunately, this summer is going to be a tricky one, but it will be in place before the end of the summer.
There's a curiosity factor on Main Street where the old CVS building was.
Yeah.
And now there's a sign up there touting that it has a multiple, there's going to be a multiple use facility in there. And I've heard the number 500 batted around. And then I saw in the Gloucester Times is also a tax relief for the owners, or a TIF, or is that what it's called, a TIF?
Yeah.
The place is going to be called The Cut. And I guess 2 questions I have. One is respect to the TIF, how it helps the city. And then the other one is that I have heard, and I'm curious about myself, is parking. If this venue ends up with some kind of concert or something where 500 people can go in. So if you could give us an update on that stuff.
All right. So first, to address the parking. So everything they're doing, with the exception of they want to do a marquee sign, sort of like an old school theater that sort of like hangs out over the sidewalk. That needs special permits. Everything else is done by right. So the parking, just like any restaurant that opens downtown, they can count the municipal parking lots that are nearby. We get St. Peter's, the lots over near between City Hall and Bank Gloucester, and at least for now, I-4C2. So parking is not any part of the equation for permitting this project. I have heard, I don't know for sure, that they might be working with some of the local businesses to that are closed after hours to use some space. That's just part of the Gloucester rumor mill. I haven't talked to Tom, the owner of the place, to see if that's indeed in the plans, but it's not required. So a TIF, tax incremental financing, it was really controversial when Gloucester Crossing went in it, but there was also a lot of opposition to Gloucester Crossing, and they wonder, why are we giving a tax break to a rich guy? So just so people understand, the TIF is, we give it, in the case of the cut, it's a 25% discount on the tax revenue over the next 5 years. And it works out to about $9,700 a year. These are estimates. So let's just, I don't even know what it's assessed at today, but just say currently the tax on the CVS building as it stands today is, just round number, say it's $10,000 a year. We're still going to get that $10,000. The discount is on anything above and beyond. So after all is said and done, he's got the place, the restaurant's open, the venue's open, and the new assessment says, okay, now your taxes are, $40,000 a year. The 25% is only off that $30,000. Okay, so we are not discounting anything we're already receiving. It's sort of, we're giving a discount on future revenue, and it's only for a 5-year period. But what it enabled the owners to do is to leverage our TIF to get a state grant for a abandoned building grant, which, for all intents and purposes, CVS was for a year or so, more than that. I can't recall when they moved. So, and that was a 6 or even a 7-figure grant from the state. So by us giving him a break of about $9,700 a year for 5 years, he's able to get $1 million+ grant from the state that will help this thing get off the ground. I see it as a magnet that's going to bring in a lot of business downtown. There's we're looking at nationally touring acts. I know there's been some discussion about how it might impact some of the local bars, that have music, but the local bars for the most part are cover bands. I played in a cover band in most of the local bars. These are nationally touring acts that would not be coming to town. So we're not like taking them from another venue. And it's like I say, it's bodies pulled into the city that are going to be looking for things to do before and after the show. So I think it's going to be a win-win for everybody. And it's most of the stuff's happening later in the evening when absolutely the retailers are closed and the restaurants for the most are closing down as the show is letting out. So it's I think it's something that's a plus for Gloucester. It's going to really, every year something new happens to put us on the map, and this is just the latest thing that I think will put us on the map.
All right. Anything else you want to mention, Mr. Mayor?
No, well, with this project, people have been asking how it impacts the other music venue that has been talked about, proposed for I-4C2. And I just think it's important for people to know that, A, cut to the chase, I do not support that project. B, the project proponents do not own that site. We, the city of Gloucester, own that site. And C, their proposal does not fit within the current zoning of that site, the designated port area and marine industrial. So I'm not sure what their plans are now that the cut is basically a go. But from my point of view, in my office, we are not in any. We have no motivation to help that project along.